The midday sun scorched down on the busy city square, where crowds rushed in and out of stores, their arms full of shopping bags, their eyes glued to glowing phone screens. Among them, a thin old man shuffled slowly across the pavement. His jacket was faded and frayed at the edges, his trousers had patches stitched onto them, and his worn-out shoes looked as if they had seen decades of use. In his hands, he carried a small paper bag with a loaf of bread and a bottle of milk. His gray beard was unkempt, and his calloused hands shook slightly as he moved forward. To most people, he looked like just another poor man struggling to survive. Near the entrance of a luxury boutique, two young men leaned against a shiny sports car, laughing loudly as the old man passed by. One of them smirked and said, "Look at him, he can't even afford a proper shirt. What's he doing here in this part of town?" The other added, "Probably hoping someone will give him $1. People like him should stay away from places like this." They both burst into laughter, their mocking voices loud enough for others nearby to hear. The old man paused for a moment, his eyes meeting theirs briefly. There was no anger in his gaze, only a kind of calm sadness, as if he had heard such words many times before. Without saying a word, he continued walking, ignoring the insults that followed him. But behind him, whispers began to spread. Some people shook their heads in pity, others avoided him entirely, pulling their children closer, as though poverty was contagious. Inside the boutique, the atmosphere was even colder. As the old man pushed open the glass door, the sharp scent of expensive perfume filled his lungs. A tall woman behind the counter looked him up and down with disdain. "Sir, this store is not for everyone," she said firmly. "Maybe you'd feel more comfortable somewhere else." Her voice was dripping with judgment. A few customers giggled, pretending to browse while whispering cruel remarks. The old man's lips trembled slightly, but he remained silent. He set his paper bag down on the counter, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out a small, worn leather wallet. The cashier rolled her eyes, expecting to see a few crumpled bills at most. Instead, what she saw froze her in place: a sleek black card with a golden insignia, the kind of card reserved only for billionaires with unlimited accounts. The old man placed it gently on the counter and said, in a quiet voice, "I'll take the most expensive suit you have. Size 40. The store fell into stunned silence. The customers who had laughed moments earlier now stared with wide eyes. The two young men outside peered through the glass, their mocking smiles fading into confusion. The manager rushed forward, bowing almost embarrassingly low. "Of course, sir. Right away, sir. Please, let me personally assist you." His hands shook as he ushered the old man toward the VIP section. The old man didn't boast, didn't smirk, didn't scold anyone for their cruelty. He simply walked with steady steps, as though none of it surprised him. For years, he had dressed in rags, not because he couldn't afford better, but because he believed in living humbly. He had built an empire from the ground up: factories, farms, shipping companies, and investments that stretched across the country. Yet he never flaunted his wealth. He drove an old pickup truck, lived in a modest farmhouse on the outskirts of town, and wore clothes that reminded him of his roots. But the truth was beginning to unravel in front of everyone. As the tailor rushed to take his measurements, the manager whispered, "Sir, forgive us. We didn't realize," the old man interrupted softly, "you didn't need to realize anything. A man is not defined by the clothes he wears. You should have treated me with respect regardless." His words cut deeper than any insult could. News spread quickly. Within hours, people were talking about the mysterious old man in rags who turned out to be one of the richest men in the country. Some tried to apologize, others scrambled to justify their behavior. But the old man disappeared quietly, slipping away as soon as his suit was prepared, leaving the store and the bystanders speechless. That evening, as the city lights flickered on, the old man drove his rusty truck back to the wide fields that stretched endlessly under the fading orange sky. Children from nearby homes ran toward him, laughing and calling his name. He handed out candies from his paper bag, smiling at their joy. To them, he wasn't a billionaire, a symbol of power, or a mystery. To them, he was simply Grandpa Joe, the kind old man who always shared what he had. He looked out at the horizon, his heart heavy with the day's events, and whispered to himself, "The world will always see what it wants to see. But I will never let it change who I am." The next morning, whispers about the old man's identity had reached far beyond the boutique. Social media posts showed blurry photos of him holding the black card, walking in rags among stunned onlookers. Bloggers speculated, news anchors debated, and strangers shared the story with captions like, "Never judge a book by its cover." Yet, the old man himself paid no attention. He was already awake before dawn, tending to his fields, pulling weeds with his own hands, his boots caked in mud. Wealth had never changed his routine, and no scandal or attention would either. But the world was not ready to let him remain invisible. A week later, a local journalist drove out to the countryside, determined to uncover who this mysterious figure was. She expected to find security guards, a mansion, perhaps a private gate. Instead, she found a small white farmhouse with peeling paint, a clothesline swaying in the wind, and the old man himself, chopping wood beside a chicken coop. His simple smile greeted her as she approached. "Good morning, miss," he said kindly, "can I help you?" The journalist introduced herself nervously, unsure how to begin. Finally, she blurted out, "Sir, people are saying you're one of the richest men in the country. Is that true?" The old man set down his axe, wiped his brow with the sleeve of his tattered shirt, and chuckled softly. "I suppose that's what the papers would call me. But here, I'm just Joe. A farmer, a neighbor, a friend." She was stunned by his humility, but her curiosity pressed further. "Why live like this? Why dress like this when you could buy anything you want?" He sat down on the porch steps and motioned for her to sit too. His eyes, though tired, carried the weight of decades. "Because money was never my goal," he said slowly. "When I was a boy, I had nothing. My parents worked fields for pennies, and many nights we went to bed hungry. When I grew up, I promised myself I would build something lasting, something that would feed people, give them jobs, and make life easier for families like mine. And I did, but through it all, I never forgot the feel of empty stomachs, the shame of worn-out shoes, the sound of others laughing because of how poor I looked. So I kept these clothes. They remind me of where I came from. They remind me never to forget." The journalist's eyes filled with tears as she scribbled his words. His story was not about riches, but about resilience. He spoke of how he started with a single acre of land, how he grew corn and sold it in small markets, reinvesting every cent. He bought more land, built small factories, and eventually owned companies that shipped food across the nation. While others flaunted cars and mansions, he built schools in rural towns, funded hospitals, and gave scholarships to children who had no chance otherwise. Yet he did it all quietly, never attaching his name to any of it. "Why hide your generosity?" the journalist asked. He smiled gently. "Because kindness loses its purity when it seeks applause. What matters is the work itself, not the credit." When her article was published, it spread like wildfire. Headlines read, "The billionaire farmer who lives in rags." People who had once mocked him now lined up outside his farmhouse, some out of admiration, others out of guilt. The boutique's manager personally arrived with a formal apology and a gift card worth thousands. The old man accepted it politely but later donated it to a local orphanage without telling anyone. Still, not everyone understood. At a dinner party in the city, wealthy businessmen gossiped about him, saying he was foolish for not living like the rich should. One scoffed, "What's the point of being a billionaire if you don't show it off?" That evening, the old man attended the same event, still wearing his modest clothes. The room fell silent when he entered, some embarrassed, others whispering again. A bold guest finally asked, "Why don't you at least buy a mansion, or drive a car that matches your wealth?" The old man lifted his glass of water and replied calmly, "Because a mansion won't make me sleep better, and a fancy car won't take me where I need to go any faster. What I own already gives hundreds of thousands of families food, jobs, and homes. Isn't that a better way to spend money than covering myself in gold?" His words silenced the entire room. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others clapped quietly, moved by the wisdom in his voice. That night, as he returned home, he found the children of the village waiting on his porch again, eager to hear a story before bed. He sat among them, telling tales of hard work, of never giving up, of always choosing kindness even when the world mocked you. His laughter echoed through the night, louder than the crickets, stronger than the judgments of strangers. Years later, when the old man passed away peacefully in his sleep, the entire nation mourned. His funeral was not filled with luxury cars or golden caskets. Instead, it was held in the open fields, where farmers, workers, children, and families gathered, thousands upon thousands of people who owed their livelihoods to him. No one spoke of his billions that day. They spoke of his generosity, his humility, his lessons. On his gravestone, There were no titles, no numbers, no mention of his wealth. It simply read, Joseph Carter, a man who never forgot his roots. And those who had once mocked him never forgot the lesson he left behind, that true wealth is not shown in the clothes you wear, but in the lives you touch, the kindness you spread, and the love you leave behind.